Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're going to be talking about Intuitive Machines.
Oh, yeah.
This is a company that's been really making waves in the space industry.
Definitely.
And we're going to be taking a look at this article from the Motley Fool called, Should You Buy Intuitive Machines While It's Below $22?
Good question.
If you're into space exploration, this is going to be a pretty interesting deep dive.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And especially if you're an investor, this one might be particularly interesting for you.
Yeah, if you're looking at the space economy, this is definitely a company to watch.
So Intuitive Machines, why are they such a big deal?
Well, what's really captivating about them is they kind of represent this, shift that we're seeing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, space exploration isn't just governments anymore.
Right.
It's private companies stepping up, doing some really ambitious things.
Absolutely. And they're making history.
Yeah.
I mean, their Nova C lunar lander, Odysseus, landed on the moon in February 2024.
That's right.
First American spacecraft to do so since 1972. But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
It was the first commercial spacecraft to ever land on the moon.
Huge.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. It's a pivotal moment, because
Right.
it just signifies a change in dynamic in how we approach space.
I see what you mean.
All sorts of possibilities, open up scientific commercial, even,
Yeah.
future human settlements
Wow.
beyond Earth. It's pretty exciting.
Definitely. And that success seems to have really solidified their reputation because they've been racking up these contracts with NASA.
They have.
So what's the significance of these partnerships, especially with the Artemis campaign?
Yeah.
Which is aiming to establish a sustainable human presence on the moon.
Well, these contracts are more than just funding. It's a vote of confidence from NASA.
Right.
It shows that NASA sees them as a vital partner to make Artemis happen.
Makes sense.
For example, they've got a contract to build a lunar terrain vehicle for astronauts.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
A rover.
Yeah, think about it. A rover designed for the moon.
That's straight out of a movie.
It is pretty cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But there's more, right?
Oh, yeah.
What other contracts have they got?
Well, there's the contract to deliver payloads to the moon's south pole,
Oh, wow.
which is really interesting
Yeah.
because the south pole is thought to have a lot of water ice. And then there's the big one, the Near Space Network contract.
Okay.
This one could be worth billions over 10 years, and it involves putting up lunar relay satellites.
Wait,
Yeah.
they're not just building landers and rovers.
Whoop.
They're becoming like a crucial part of the infrastructure for future lunar missions.
Exactly.
So instead of relying on Earth-based communication,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to create a space-based network around the moon.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's huge.
It highlights how they're not just focused on individual missions, they're thinking long-term about a sustainable presence on the moon.
Right.
This network is going to be essential for crewed missions research, even commercial activities.
It's like they're building the highways and the communication systems of a future lunar society.
That's a great way to put it.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, and it really speaks to their strategic thinking, The Near Space Network puts them in a key position for lunar infrastructure development,
For sure.
but it's not all about infrastructure. They've got some exciting missions coming up, too.
Okay, like what?
Well, IM-2 is scheduled for early 2025, and it's going to the moon's south pole.
Okay.
But what's special about that?
I'm listening.
Well, remember that potential water ice I mentioned?
Yeah.
IM-2 is going to be using a drill and a mass spectrometer to analyze materials looking for signs of that water ice.
Why is finding water ice on the moon such a big deal?
Oh, it's huge.
I mean, aside from it being a scientific discovery, what are the practical implications?
Well, it could completely change how we think about a long-term human presence on the moon.
Okay.
Water ice could be drinking water oxygen, even rocket fuel.
Wow.
It could be the difference between relying on expensive supplies from Earth and using what's already there on the moon.
I see what you mean. So instead of constantly shipping everything from Earth, we could use resources found right there on the moon. That makes a lot of sense from a cost perspective and from a sustainability perspective as well.
Right.
So IM-2 is definitely one to keep an eye on, especially if it confirms the presence of usable water ice.
Yeah, for sure.
But what about other upcoming missions? I know they've got IM-3 planned for 2026.
Yeah, this one's going to a lunar swirl in the Rainer Gamma region.
Okay.
Lunar swirls are these really cool features on the moon's surface with these swirling patterns of light and dark material.
Oh, wow.
Scientists think they're formed by how the moon's magnetic field interacts with the solar wind.
Okay, so it's not all about finding resources or building infrastructure.
Yeah.
They're also tackling some of the moon's biggest scientific mysteries.
Absolutely.
It sounds like each mission is kind of pushing the boundaries of our understanding of the moon in different ways.
Yeah, and that's what makes Intuitive Machines so interesting. They're not just a space company. They're a company pushing the frontiers of knowledge and exploration.
For sure.
Sure.
But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about their financial standing.
Yeah.
All these ambitious missions and contracts have got to be expensive.
Definitely.
So how are they doing financially?
That's a great point. It's one thing to have exciting missions, but you got to keep the lights on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what does their Q3 2024 report tell us about their financial health?
Well, it paints a pretty optimistic picture.
Okay.
Their backlog, basically the value of future contracts already secured, jumped to $316.2 million, up from $213 million the previous quarter.
Whoa, okay.
That's a big increase.
So bigger backlog means more projects in the pipeline,
Right.
which means more potential revenue down the road.
Exactly.
That's a good sign.
It is.
But are they actually making a profit from all this space exploration yet?
Not yet, but analysts are predicting some serious growth.
Okay.
They estimate a 61% jump in revenue in 2025, and some even think they could be profitable by 2026.
Wow.
But we have to remember, investing in any young company, especially one in such a complex field like space exploration, there's always risks involved.
So it sounds like they're on an upward trajectory, but there's still some uncertainty.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how their financial performance evolves over the next couple of years, especially as they take on these missions and expand their role in lunar infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough balance between managing their finances, pushing technological boundaries, and capitalizing on the growing opportunities in the space economy.
Definitely. And speaking of the space economy, it's clear that Intuitive Machines is positioning itself as a major player in this field.
Yeah, for sure.
But their work has implications that extend far beyond just their company.
Definitely.
Right.
What Intuitive Machines is doing could pave the way for new industries, new technologies, even new ways of thinking about our place in the cosmos.
That's a perfect transition into our next segment.
Great.
We've talked about the company, their missions, their financial health, but now let's zoom out a bit and explore the broader implications of lunar exploration and how Intuitive Machines might play a part in shaping this exciting future.
Sounds good. I'm ready when you are wrapped.
Let's do it. This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, this is where it gets fun.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go. We were talking about water ice being a game changer for settlements on the moon.
Right.
But it's not just about having a drink or breezing.
Yeah, okay.
We could make rocket fuel on the moon.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
If we can produce rocket fuel right there on the moon, it would totally change how we launch missions further into space.
Exactly. It'd be way cheaper and less complicated to launch missions to Mars, the asteroid belt, you know.
Right. We would need to bring as much fuel from Earth.
Exactly. The moon could be like a refueling station for going even deeper into space.
That's pretty wild. And it's not just about the water, right?
No.
You mentioned lunar regolith before.
Yeah, the moon dust.
What's so special about that stuff?
Well, it might not sound that glamorous, but it's packed with useful elements, silicon, aluminum, titanium, things like that.
Okay.
All essential for building and manufacturing.
So we could, like, 3D print structures on the moon using materials from the moon itself. Exactly. Habitats, research facilities, launch pads.
It's like the ultimate in sustainable living, but on another world.
And it's not just build and friend.
Yeah.
Regolith could be used for solar panels, radiation shielding, even roads and landing pads.
So we're talking about a whole lunar economy.
Yeah.
Industries like mining, construction, manufacturing, all taking root on the moon.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It sounds like something out of science fiction.
It does.
But with companies like Intuitive Machines making these strides, it feels like it could actually happen.
I think so, too. And don't forget about the science.
Oh, right. The moon's like a time capsule, right?
Yeah. Preserving a record of the early solar system, more exploration and research could tell us so much about how planets formed, about the history of the inner solar system, maybe even clues about the origins of life itself.
It feels like every mission, every discovery just opens up more questions and possibilities.
It's a never-ending cycle of exploration and discovery.
But let's be realistic for a second.
Okay.
All this talk about lunar industries and space exploration, it's exciting, but there's got to be some challenges too.
Of course, space is a tough environment. No atmosphere, extreme temperatures, radiation.
Yeah, that's going to be hard on people and equipment.
It is. So it's not just about the technology. It's also about protecting humans and creating livable conditions on the moon.
I bet the logistics are crazy.
They are. And then there's the money.
Right.
Lunar ventures need huge investments up front, and it's still uncertain how quickly those investments will pay off.
I guess it's like any new industry. Lots of potential, but also lots of risk and uncertainty.
Exactly.
But let's get back to intuitive machines.
Okay.
They seem to be at the forefront of all this.
They do.
What role do you see them playing in this lunar landscape as it evolves?
I think they're in a great spot to take advantage of the growth of the lunar economy.
How so?
Their experience with land-in systems, their growing part in lunar infrastructure, and their work with NASA.
So they're not just launching missions.
Nope.
They're laying the groundwork for others to follow.
Exactly. They're like creating the ecosystem for other companies and ventures to thrive.
That's pretty amazing.
Their work could make so many things possible, from lunar mining to scientific outposts to even lunar tourism one day.
Lunar tourism?
Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine taking a vacation to the moon.
That sounds crazy.
It does. But a few decades ago, space travel itself sounded crazy.
That's true. Who knows what other seemingly impossible ideas will become reality in the years to come.
I don't know. It's so exciting.
It's a fascinating time to be watching this industry. It feels like we're at the start of a new era of exploration and expansion for humanity.
I agree.
But let's bring it back to intuitive machines for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about their missions, their financials, and the bigger implications of their work.
Yeah.
For someone thinking about investing in them, what would you say is the key takeaway?
Well, I'd say intuitive machines is high risk, high reward.
Makes sense.
It's a cutting edge industry with tons of potential, but it's still very new and things change quickly. So do your research understand the risks?
Yeah.
Think about your investment goals.
Exactly. Investing in individual companies always needs careful thought. But even beyond that, I think the story of intuitive machines just highlights how much progress is happening in space exploration.
Yeah, and the huge opportunities that are out there.
It really is an exciting time to be witnessing all of this.
It is, and it makes me wonder what other industries might be affected by all this lunar development in the coming years.
That's a great question to think about.
We talked about mining construction tourism.
Right.
But what else might pop up as lunar exploration keeps advancing?
It's hard to even imagine. The possibilities are endless.
It really is a new chapter for humankind.
And who knows what incredible things we'll discover and create.
Yeah, it really is mind-boggling when you think about the ripple effects of lunar exploration.
It is.
I mean, we talked about mining and construction.
Right.
But what about things like pharmaceuticals or agriculture?
Oh, that's interesting.
Could we see breakthroughs in those fields because of the moon's unique conditions?
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
The moon's lower gravity and no atmosphere could be really beneficial for some types of research and development.
I see what you mean.
Imagine growing crops in a controlled environment on the moon.
Right.
No pests, no diseases from Earth, or developing new drugs and materials.
Wow.
Using the moon's gravity and radiation to our advantage.
Okay, now you really get my imagination going.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about.
It's like opening a door to a whole new world of possibilities.
It is.
But it also makes me think about all the ethical and legal stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
As we start doing more on the moon,
Right.
like, who owns the resources? How do we protect the environment? What impact are we going to have on the moon?
It's a whole new frontier.
Yeah.
Not just for exploration, but for ethics and how we govern ourselves out there.
We're going to need some serious global cooperation and some smart policies to figure all that out.
Definitely.
It's exciting and a little scary at the same time.
It is. It is.
But it's a challenge we got to face head on, right?
Yeah.
As we keep pushing further into space, we need to be responsible and think about the long-term consequences of what we're doing.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
The story of intuitive machines,
Right.
their missions, their role in the lunar economy, and the big picture implications of this new age of space exploration.
It's been a great discussion.
It has.
I hope our listeners are walking away with a better understanding of just how much is happening in this field and the incredible possibilities out there.
Yeah, me too. Intuitive Machines is definitely a company to watch.
For sure.
Not just as an investment, but as a pioneer in pushing the boundaries of what we can do in space and inspiring the next generation of dreamers and explorers.
Exactly. Their work shows what we can achieve when we combine innovation, collaboration, and a passion for knowledge.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay. Sounds good.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
All right. I'm all ears.
As we keep exploring the moon and beyond what ethical considerations and responsibilities should guide our actions, it's a question that will shape the future of space exploration and humanity's place in the universe.
That's a powerful thought to leave everyone with.
Something to think about as we journey further into the unknown.
Well, until our next deep dive, keep looking up at the stars and keep dreaming big.
And keep exploring.